we are all set. Hello and welcome to Nexus Drafthouse by StormLegacy.com. I am Sahara Drac. The beautiful face floating above me belongs to Ryan Tower. He's handsome. He looks a little damp. Why you?
I'm a little wet.
Why you damp? Is it like good
Uh,
reasons or?
yeah, well, I would hope so. But yeah, no, it's at a concert and
You
we got rained on.
Oh,
So
you got rained out. Oh man. Well,
we did. It's
okay.
a fun
Well,
time though.
I'm glad
So
you can make it. That's good.
yeah, drafting. I
Draft
mean, I had to
drafting, man.
summon the rain just so I could make it back here in
That's
time.
good. You did
So
your rain dance. I like that. So this show, for those who perhaps haven't seen it before, I see some people coming in. Is a draft analysis show. It is entirely talking about drafts. We don't look at games or anything. It's the hard science of Heroes of the Storm. You know, this is like you get your notebook out and all that because we're going to be talking about a lot of draft analysis, and it's to improve your own drafting in your games and to better understand team drafting on the pro level when you're watching the HTC or anything else, or perhaps improve your chair league team, things like that. So drafting, a vitally crucial part of the game, a huge part of your chances of victory comes on the draft screen, and we have a very special guest tonight, someone I'm very excited to have on the show. I've wanted him on for a while. He is Fan Yang of Gale Force Esports. Hello, sir.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing today?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. You know, our draft's probably not gonna be quite as exciting as the concert, but still should provide some entertainment, I think.
I mean, depends on the concert, right? He could have been at Kenny G or something.
That's true, that's
hey,
true.
that would have been smooth, but
Actually,
no, it wasn't.
oh, okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Yeah, so Fan recently traveled to do replay analysis for HGC recently, and the fourth guy, as it's known, and has also competed in the Western Clash a couple weeks ago. So the thing I love most about Fan is he's the late shift. And for people like us who stay up really late and want to watch some high quality hots late at night, he's typically there providing that top notch gameplay. So thanks for that, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
That's me, the vampire.
Yeah, yeah.
Vampire of Hots.
You're like the whoever the guy is that comes on like after Jimmy Kimmel, you know, like 2 in the morning guy.
Yeah, super late night show, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Nice. Okay, so yeah, how have things been going, man? Like, how are things with the team? I know you guys kind of you performed well at the Western Clash. Did you kind of meet your expectations there, or?
Um, our we didn't quite meet. I guess everyone on the team had like individual expectations.
Mhm.
So, personally for me, I don't think we quite met our expectation. I wanted like top two basically. I felt
Sure.
like we could be anyone except Fnatic at that tournament. So we ended up getting fourth place, I believe, which is
Yeah.
it's something, but not quite there. But
Yeah.
yeah, overall not too bad, not too good.
Well, every time I see these tournaments and I see the gameplay coming in, the gap gets a little smaller. For NA, it's just it's a long, hard work, slow process. But every time I watch, it definitely looks better and better. So I think you guys did really well. But you have picked a couple drafts for us tonight.
There were fun ones too.
I forgot the most important part of the show where I ask personal questions. So, Fan, where you recently moved. You were in Northern California. Now you're down in Southern California.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
In Irvine now, like very like close to Blizzard HQ more or less.
Nice. And you
Convenient.
yeah, very convenient. And you're originally here by way. Were you born in China or?
Yeah, I was born in China. I moved over to the US when I was like 6 years old or something.
Okay.
So been here most of my life.
Cool. This is an important question, one I always ask, because it really is. It exposes person's armor and tells you everything you need to know about a person. So, what is your favorite skin in Heroes of the Storm?
Oh, favorite skin?
Mhm.
I
You
think it
stole
has
my
to
question.
be the
Awesome.
what's it called? Pink Deputy Vala,
Oh,
I
that's a good
believe.
one. That's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know
like
you're.
Vala's one of my main heroes, so
Yeah. You
that's
play a
like
lot
the
of
skin
Vala.
that I always gotta use when I play her.
Yeah, I know you're not a big like skin enthusiast. You like you know you're not like crazy about the skins, but it's still important to have a favorite. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely agreed.
Awesome. Okay, so you picked 2 games for us tonight, both against Team Expert from the Western Clash, and the first one is on Tomb of the Spider Queen. So, how would you say? Would you say that your team, Gale Force, has a kind of the distinct drafting style, and what sort of things do you think are your team's strengths when it comes to drafting?
So I think I do draft for GFE, and I
Mhm.
think overall our team we are more willing to kind of experiment with a lot of different compositions. It's not necessarily true if you look at just Western Clash alone.
Right.
But personally, as a team, I think we run more compositions than pretty much any other North American team, or at least we're willing to try more. And then when it gets to tournament time, that's when we kind of restrict our compositions into the ones we think work the best, and we'll run those only during the tournaments.
Okay. Well, in this match, you're actually up against the team that I think definitely has a reputation for drafting the most out of the box, Team Expert.
Definitely.
They've busted out some pretty wild drafts in their history, and it's always pretty fun to watch. What sort of things are you looking out for on Tomb of the Spider Queen, specifically against a team like this?
So going into Tomb of the Spider Queen, we scouted most of their HGC drafts, and that was more or less standard. We weren't quite expecting what happened in the actual tournament, where they kind of ran like a Medivh lineup. They haven't actually run, even though that team is known for Medivh.
Right.
In their previous drafts, it's not like they run it every single time on Tomb or anything, so it was a bit of a surprise to us. For us, though, we also have our style of playing Tomb, which involves a lot of wave clear and different heroes depending on whether or not we could get like Tassadar at the time, which is considered one of the strongest heroes in North America.
V pick.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
right where he belongs.
This guy's a Tassadar fanboy extraordinaire, man. It's weird.
Perma first pick first ban. Perfect for him.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's true. It's a good time. It's actually he's always been that way, except for like a short period where he got nerfed.
A couple months,
he got a little over nerfed, but then they brought him right back. Okay.
Yeah.
So looking at this, go ahead.
I was just saying, so going into this, I mean, how much of a plan did you have specifically for what you wanted to draft? Kind of regardless of what they picked up, and how much did you expect to have to draft on the fly?
So going into like a tournament in general, we will plan anywhere from 3 to 5 picks pre-planned. So like on some maps, we will just have an entire 5-line man up or 5-man lineup prepared almost regardless of what our opponents draft, if we think it's like the best possible 5 that we can get on the map. Other maps will have like we'll get a solid 2 or 3 heroes in our initial opening, and then we'll flex our lineup to kind of adjust to what the enemy is drafting after that. So yeah, anywhere from like 3 I would say anywhere from like 2 to 5 heroes are pre-planned at any one time before the tournament.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the more interesting things about that we find out on this show from various players is the degree that they kind of play it by ear versus, and most teams lean towards have a game plan. Obviously that makes sense.
Right.
But
who?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Well, who are your top heroes going into Tomb of the Spider Queen against Team Esper? You mentioned Tassadar. Did you have another 1 or 2, or did you have a full lineup planned?
Yeah, so for Tomb of the Spider Queen, at least our idea going into the match against Europe was obviously the Tassadar pick and like the Oreo pick. These are like very, very strong in the current meta, so if we can grab one of those, we'll take them. But other than that, we had more of a just generalized game plan of we kind of wanted to snowball the early game against the EU teams, because with Tassadar, we knew our early game would get a lot stronger, and Tomb of the Spider Queen is a map that historically Europe has been very, very strong on. So we didn't really want to take them head on one of their region's best maps where they have really good understanding of how to play the map in general. So we wanted to focus more about like early game wave clear and trying to kind of snowball the game out of their control, so we don't have to kind of deal with their late game, so to say.
Okay.
So starting it out, you guys do ban out the Ariel, and I'd like to go back to that. They banned Stitches, so I have questions about both of those actually. So Ariel is, like you said, really strong in the meta right now. Do you think Ariel is the strongest first ban here just because it closes a lot of avenues of drafting, or what was the reasoning behind the Ariel for you?
Yeah, so the Oreo ban for us was more of, I would say, like a stylistic choice, because Europe, they prioritize Oreo really, really highly, whereas North America prioritized Tassadar highly. In North America, we would not often see, for example, Oreo first picks, but when we scouted Europe and saw their drafts of the tournaments, it was very likely that they would always, run these Oreo first pick compositions, and they seem to have a lot of success with them as well. So that's kind of where the ban come from, just taking out their comfort and a pick that they seem to run extremely well with.
Bringing them to down to or to your level, right, where you want them to play. So
Yeah, essentially.
Got it. Now, this Stitches ban, were you at all surprised by this? Do you guys had you guys been running a lot of Stitches? What do you think they were thinking with the ban here?
I think they also did their fair share of scouting on us. We have probably run Stitches the most on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Okay.
It's not a map that we pick too often, so I'm not 100% sure, but if my memory serves correctly, that's probably one of our most picked tanks, at least in broadcasted matches on Tomb. So makes sense that they probably just didn't want to deal with what that hero provides. It is good wave clear with the slam build, and on top of that, it's just Stitches and Hook, always an annoying factor to deal with.
For sure.
A few episodes ago, we had Saray on, and he flat out said that Stitches was hands down the best tank in the game right now. Do you agree?
I think North America kind of did have that mentality maybe a month ago, where it was like Stitches and Anubrak were by far considered the top two tanks. Right now, after Western Clash, it's a little bit more up in the air for me. We see that Europe, while they do use Stitches, they don't use as much Stitches as we do, so it's falling down a little bit for me. I wouldn't say it's definitely the best tank, but it's certainly up there. You're never gonna be sad about picking Stitches most of the time.
Right.
Yeah. Once he kind of got rediscovered, he.
Who else is up there for you, and maybe specifically the way GFE plays?
For us, we really, I think everyone in general prioritizes Anubrak, like I said before, really highly, as well as Stitches. We also like Arthas. I think our priority on Arthas is maybe slightly higher than most other teams. We just think it's a really good hero. Attack speed slow and insanely tanky. Makes a wall in the front line really hard to get to the back line.
Illidan's also in the meta now, so Arthas makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. Probably the best Illidan counter, so to speak, and also Muradin, who's been popping up a little bit more. I think he got buffed maybe last patch. Yeah, and ETC as well. We haven't. I don't think any North American team has really played ETC. Europe kind of brought that back, but probably a lot more people. A lot more teams are experimenting with that in North America now.
I'm kind of the mind that people overreacted to ETC's nerfs maybe a little bit without taking enough time to maybe reanalyze his position. Do you think that's fair, or do you think it just took a while for people to kind of pick him up again?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I remember a lot of when he was first changed, people were trying him out, and then just a bunch of negativity surrounding his change. And I think it's more or less North America kind of wrote him off.
Put this cow in the garbage.
Pretty much what happened.
But it wasn't. But he's still there, man. He was all right. So okay, so you guys go into the Tassadar with the first pick. If you have anything to add to that, are you sick of Tassadar like most pro players, or are you kind of like
no?
Are you kind of like no? This guy is, as long as he's great, I'm having fun. Like,
yeah, I mean, I personally don't mind the Tassadar in the meta. He was one of like my most successful heroes when I was playing Tassadar as well, and just overall, I think our team understands how to utilize the hero pretty well. So personally, I don't mind, but I know a lot of people are pretty sick of it.
Yeah, they are. Well,
he just enables so many things. He's pretty key.
Ultimate.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have to dwell on Tassadar too much. I think we all know what's going on with him. But if you want to know more about Tassadar, feel free to ask in the chat. So they open up with a Greymane and Medivh. And what do you think of those picks?
Yeah, so that was pretty interesting to us. Greymane is not out of the ordinary by any means. He's very commonly picked on Tomb of the Spider Queen. He has good wave clear, and the cask damage is wave clear as well as splash damage. Whenever you're pushing or defending a spider, cask is really, really good at it. And in general, he can just clear waves insanely quickly, which is something that's pretty good on Tomb. So Greymane, no surprise to us there. But the Medivh pick was, like I said before, pretty surprising to us. We we didn't really we knew their team played Medivh a lot. Like everyone knows that Expert has like that rap of uh, ADRD being the Medivh player of Europe, so we knew that, but didn't expect them to pick it that highly. So that was kind of
Right.
interesting to us.
Do you, looking back on this, do you kind of what I guess what I'm asking is why do you think it was you were surprised by it a little bit? Why do you think they opted to go this route? Do you think they maybe just thought you couldn't play around the Medivh, or do you think he did something on this map that maybe you hadn't seen before as far as his some of his strengths?
I think there's several reasons behind the pick. I think, like first of all, they probably scouted us, like I said before, and when we first picked Tassadar on Tomb, we have run Tracer in previous broadcasted matches, so they
Mm-hmm.
probably at least had a suspicion that we were going to go into the Task Tracer. I mean, most teams these days will go into that just because it's a very solid, strong combination of heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Medivh does really well against the Tassadar Tracer just because, Pulse Bomb has a 2 second delay before it actually hits.
Right.
So as long as you keep your shield available, you basically counter the Tracer's Pulse Bomb and
Mm-hmm.
counter his most effective way of killing someone.
Right.
So I think part of it was preemptive. And the second part of the Medivh pick is just kind of portaling across lanes. Tomb is a small map.
Small map.
You can portal from top to mid
Mhm.
or mid to bottom, and that kind of enables the rotations and speeds up the rotations by quite a bit. And Tomb, not only is the map about wave clearing, it's also about who can rotate faster and more effectively, more efficiently. So I think those were probably like the two main reasons that they picked it that early.
Yeah, yeah.
Those and
Yes,
Yeah.
and vision, which is helpful
Yeah,
too.
Vision's always
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah. And I
For
think
turn and control.
I
Yeah.
think at this point in the draft, that's what everyone was thinking, right? Like everyone was like, "Oh, are they still going to pick Tracer?" Because Medivh, you know, and the analysts were saying it, and I was thinking it. You guys did opt to go for it, so you pick up a Tracer and a Dahaka here.
Yes.
Were you thinking about that? Like, should we try something else here against this Medivh? Or
Yeah. How did this pick adjust your thinking, I guess, going into these second through picks?
So basically, it made me think that, our game plan will change slightly, whereas Tassadar Tracer is really good at kind of just having a strong early game and killing people early on.
Mhm.
It meant that we're not going to get many or any kills in the early game, but yeah, we still decided to go with the Tassadar Tracer because even if you don't get kills with the Tassadar Tracer, it still has like that strong early game,
Mhm.
and you can still trade with other heroes with the Tracer with Tassadar Shield. And even if you don't kill them, if you can kind of bully them and force them to play passively, play behind their walls, you will still have control of the map and
Okay,
control of the turn-ins.
that makes
So
sense.
we kind of just banked on the macro aspect of the picks over the killing aspect
Sure.
when we
Can you
picked
talk a
that.
little bit about why you picked the Tracer instead of the Vala?
Um, Well, one was personal practice, I guess.
Okay.
We've had more practice with the task tracer strategy on this map than the task wallow one. But at least before Kiev, yeah, we've practiced a lot of different things
Okay.
since then. But the second thing was, I think, well, we wanted to like bully them early game, and Vala, while she does wave clear very quickly, I don't think she's quite as much of a bully as Tracer is when enabled with Tassadar.
Mm-hmm.
Vala, at most you can get kind of like a multi-shot and a Q towards the enemy team, and then
Mhm.
maybe one or two auto attacks, and that's it. Whereas Tracer, you can constantly just be, if they're
In and
anywhere
out.
not in their tower range, yeah, you're just constantly in their face, harassing them in and out kind of style. So
Okay, so it's like you said, you wanted to win the early game, and you thought the Chast Tracer could still do that despite the Medivh.
Right.
yeah, exactly. Just kind of more pressure than a task follow would put on them
Gotcha.
early game.
Okay.
Their support player, Kirsten, I think he actually said to me after the match that uh, on Stukov, he went the level 4 talent that kind of stacks your passive, and
Right.
you need 50 stacks of it in order to complete that quest, and it makes the heal a lot stronger when you complete the quest. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't get my passive done until like 19 level 19 or level 20 in the game. He's like, I've never finished it that late. Like you guys were putting on so much pressure. I was literally just healing myself and activating it just to get one stack at a time. So I think on some degree we did succeed with our kind of hyper pressure in the early game, but probably not as much as we wanted.
Right,
still.
right. Didn't quite get enough. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess that now that I've got your answer, that pick, that makes sense. Now that you're just trying to dominate that early game, and it looks like you did a good job of it. But yeah, like they said. So moving into the second ban phase, expert bans out Uther here, and you guys ban out the Sonya. Now the Uther ban, obviously, I think makes a lot of sense to most people. Double support is definitely a thing. And Uther is just a god. So, if you have anything to add about the Uther? But I'm really curious about the Sonya as well.
Yeah, the Sonya ban was pretty much more of a like player target ban towards Ethereal Angel. So when we were scouting drafts, he's a pretty good melee player, and the heroes that we saw Europe play a lot were. Obviously, Dahaka, everyone kind of plays that hero,
Right.
Which we took already, so we took that away from them. And the other kind of solo laners that he enjoyed, like Sonya was probably the one that they used on Tomb the most. They actually pretty much picked Sonya in their previous HCC games whenever they could on Tomb as the solo laner.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of another deny pick on the Sonya there. And the other picks that he would potentially go for that we thought about were like Mouthdale and Leoric, and both of those heroes kind of have a bad matchup into the Task Tracer. So kind of just banned out their comfort at the best matchup against us, and then we're hoping to force them into kind of a worse matchup.
Okay, yeah.
So do you feel pretty good going right after these bans? I mean, you picked up a lot of what you wanted. The Medivh was a little unexpected, but I mean, you kind of are doing what you set out to do and denying them some of their comfort picks as well.
Yeah, overall about the draft, we felt pretty good about it. The Medivh was, of course, the only concerning factor, but everything else felt pretty good to us.
He really can just ruin your day, Like if he does it right, like it's just like everything we're trying to do is just not working, and it's very frustrating. So yeah, I could see that worry for sure.
What would their third and fourth picks here be that would worry you? Like what are you not looking? What are you hoping that they don't pick up here?
As far as what I hope they don't pick up, I would say at this point, I don't like as far as I thought back at the tournament, I wouldn't care what they picked up because with the Medivh Greymane pickup early game, I was fairly convinced that we would be able to get the first turn in, and if we get the first turn in, we most likely will be able to snowball that to like a second turn in as well. So just the way the drafts were going, just the fact that we secured Tassadar, I was pretty sure we would get first turn in, and since the strategy is reliant on snowballing, getting first turn in is really important. So as far as whatever they picked up, at that point I felt like there was probably nothing they could pick up that would stop us from getting first turn in. Okay. So I wasn't too worried about much.
Yeah, I can see that. They do end up going with the Diablo Scary Portal edition here, and also the Stukov. So we can talk about the Diablo, but I'm also now that you've seen Stukov in a competitive LAN tournament setting, what do you think of him as far as his power level, like where he sits? Were you underwhelmed by the Stukovs, or do you think he's pretty solid?
I think Stukov fits a pretty particular niche in the where he can excel. Most of the time he's like average. He has his weaknesses.
Sure. Oh yeah.
But in particular against double support, I think he's actually quite good as a solo support, just because he's one sec actually.
Oh yep. Take your time, man. No worries.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But yeah. So Stukov as a solo support, he doesn't have cleanse, and he's like vulnerable to like dive compositions usually, because he doesn't have like that good of a mobility or self defense. Yeah. So when you play him against double support, like double support generally can't dive you because they're running two supports. And on top of that, Stukov's healing output, especially later on in the game, can kind of match the healing output of two
Two
supports,
supports, yeah.
just because of his insane amount of AoE healing.
Yeah,
Um,
he's kind of like the support Chromie, isn't he? Like he heals a ton and he does it from far away and he has that horrendously good silence. But if you can get
yeah.
at him, he's in trouble. It's kind of reminds me of Chromie actually.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I can definitely see the similarities between the two there, like you said.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a little sturdier than her, but yeah,
Only a little,
only a
yeah.
little.
He'll fall pretty easily
He
too if
he
you get
is
on top of him.
for sure, for sure. Okay, so the Diablo, that is a very that's a very aggressive pick, right? Like with the Medivh there. What sort of things like kind of bells go off as far as the rest of your draft? Do you want to change anything here because of the Diablo, or what do you think of that? Like in your next two picks, I mean.
Yeah, as far as the Diablo is concerned, it's just a really tanky frontliner that we're gonna have trouble killing because we don't have much giant killing potential. All we have is like Tracer Bomb at level 10. It does some percent HP, but other than that, no real giant killers or percent HP heroes on our side. So the Diablo pick I think was pretty good. They just wanted a really strong tank that wouldn't die, and
Mm-hmm.
also there's like the synergy that Roll20 made famous, like the Diablo
Yeah, yeah.
Medivh combo
Surprise
with
demon.
the
Yeah.
Portal Diablo, and
Yeah.
also Leyline Apocalypse just naturally lines up very well, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like VP Apocalypse. Um, so can definitely see the Diablo pick there. And
Yeah.
while it was nice, I think it was actually the Medivh and the Stukov pick that won them the game. When we were playing the actual game, it felt like they didn't practice the Diablo Medivh combo that much.
Right.
They weren't really, since we play in North America and we play against Roll20 a lot.
You've been there,
We're
done that.
we're
Yeah.
very practiced against Medivh Diablo, and Roll20 runs it. They just run it a lot more practice. Like you can tell Roll20 is a lot better at it. Just you can tell they play it a lot more. So I think that Diablo pick was something that they know is good in theory, but they didn't actually practice it a lot in scrims. But the Medivh and the Stukov pick actually, like when it got to late game, they kind of carried their team in my opinion. Medivh made it really hard to instantly kill anything, and Stukov just managed to out sustain our composition.
Right.
Even though it was essentially one support against two, he was like out healing both the Tassadar and the Rhaegar.
Oh, I believe that.
There were
Yeah.
so very crucial picks for them there, I think.
Yeah, and
So what?
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to
No,
say that
I'm.
this was the pre-patched Stukov, so that level 4 talent did ancestral level healing at this in this tournament, I believe, right? Like it
Yeah,
was
it
not
was just
nerfed.
basically ancestral. Yeah,
Okay.
once you finish it.
What were we going to say, Ryan?
So I was asking what picks, or was it just the way they played the game that kind of defeated your early game snowball strategy?
I think it was just their overall skill level and just the ability to play the map was like especially like experts and Fnatic is just higher than anything
Yeah.
we know in North America. So we didn't snowball. Like we did get the first turn in, but they probably rotated to defend slightly better than we rotated our aggression. So we probably like got slightly out rotated, and just their understanding of the map made it so that even though we got like the first one or two turn-ins, we didn't actually get that much of a lead or enough of a lead to snowball off of. Like
Okay.
yeah, so in North America, like if we get first turn in, maybe we get like a 1 to 2 level lead, but against them we only got like a half to 1 level lead, so
Okay.
kind of that kind of thing.
Gotcha. So you do finish out the team with a Rhaegar as your support and the Johanna. Looking back on this, knowing how much Stukov healing was putting out in the late game, and knowing you didn't get to snowball in the early game the way you wanted to, would you have replaced maybe one of these heroes with something a little more damage? Or obviously you need a tank and a support, but maybe different choices.
Yeah, I think the Rhaegar pick was more for kind of wave clear, and just it has a cleanse against the Diablo APOC and any combinations that they might pull off with stuns there. So overall, the Rhaegar pick is just a generalized pick. I think it's pretty solid. The
Mhm.
Johanna pick was a bit more in question. While it was good against their gray main because of blind and it has good wave clear on the map, after playing it, I think we realized that it was just a little bit too underwhelming against the Medivh.
Yeah,
Johanna only has the shield as lockdown,
very passive
and
tank. Yeah,
yeah, the way the game ended up playing out was they just kept running away from us with Medivh portals all game, and then out sustaining us. So, I think the Johanna pick could have been a more aggressive tank, for example.
what would you
What do you
have
have
done?
done? Like a Murden or something?
ETC.
Yeah, like Muradin, ETC, and a new bracket, and really anything would have been better. Just anything with solid CC, because
Right,
Johanna doesn't have any solid CC in her base kit.
that's true. Okay.
Okay.
So they do finish up their composition with the thrall. So was that was a Thero, right, on the thrall.
Yeah, that was the
Was.
Thera.
So went for a little less often seen solo laner, but definitely a solo laner. And what did you think of the Thrall pick? Do you think it worked out for him? Obviously, they won the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean he like overperformed on Thrall. Did you like the
And
Thrall
was
pick?
this a surprise too?
The Thrall pick was a surprise. Like I said before, we were expecting maybe Mathael or
Hmm.
Leoric. Those heroes have like better wave clear in general, and he's played them more in competitive matches than Thrall.
Mhm.
I think
They're
Thrall
both
was
weaker against Tess Tracer,
Yeah,
though, right?
but both of them
Yeah.
were weaker against Task Tracer than Thrall. So I think that was kind of their adjustment, where it was like perhaps the hero that didn't want to play those heroes because they are a little bit weaker matchups into the Task Tracer, and Thrall is a bit of a more solid matchup into Task Tracer. He has Spell Shield and Range Poke, but he doesn't have as much wave clear, and he's kind of weak early game. So I think that's the trade-off they went with. And I mean, throughout the game, it also felt like Athero wasn't too familiar with Thrall, so
Hmm.
I think part of that pick was also just based on the fact that we banned Sonya. I think they were
Mhm.
heavily expecting, or at least
They
expecting,
were
that they would be able to get that Sonya later on in the draft for him.
okay.
So
Yeah.
that's what it felt like to me.
So yeah, looking at this draft now that it's complete, there's a lot on your Tracer's shoulders, like the whole game essentially. Um, yeah, and I would say I would agree with you looking back that Tracer, if you are depending on Tracer to do everything as far as damage goes and kills, then some nice CC would definitely help with that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so you guys do end up dropping this game.
Did you feel looking at these drafts going into the game that you had been outdrafted, or they were pretty even, or do you think you had an upper hand on paper and it would just came down to the gameplay?
Honestly, looking at the draft originally, I felt like our draft, outside of the kill potential, like played to the map better than their draft did, just in terms of wave clear and controlling turn-ins and things of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure exactly how much, percentage I would put on the kill, on the fact that it's just hard to kill anyone on their team.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, looking at the draft, I did feel like we had a advantage in the uh, kind of map macro department. So I felt like we
With the
were
Haka,
actually,
yeah.
Right.
yeah, I felt like we were actually slightly favored in the draft. But
So you had a
um,
lot of wave clear for sure.
yeah, I definitely felt like we did not realize how much Stukov would heal them and how much Medivh would protect them, and also just Europe has a better understanding of the map. So I feel like we kind of got outplayed a little bit just in our rotations while playing the map.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, sounds like it was a draft that y'all probably learned quite a bit from, so that's good. You end up losing the second game and end up pulling out a good old reliable Braxis win on game three, so that's good. And then we move into the fourth game here, which was on Towers of Doom. Now, before we get into this, I would like to ask you, for anyone watching, if you could just give people any bit of like Hero League drafting advice for themselves, what kind of rules of thumbs would you give people?
So as far as Hero League drafting goes, I always say like the probably the easiest way to guarantee that no one will be mad at you or anything of that sort is just if you follow, for example, the Pro League, the HGC, or any any region professional play, you can kind of follow the regions and just know what the meta picks are in each patch.
Right.
And the meta picks are meta just because they're considered the strongest of that patch. So I always tell people to get really comfortable on like 2 meta picks for each role. So just two strong tanks that are in meta, 2 strong assassins, 2 strong supports that are in meta, and then like as long as you like have those 6 options always available during Hero League, I think most of the time it works out pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good advice, and I would agree with it. It's strangely enough, I got super salty in the other day, well, every day in Hero League, and I was like, you know what? I'm done filling. Like I'm best at tanks, and I'm going to play tanks. And since I started doing that, I've actually won like 8 in a row. Like things have gone really well. Just not like demanding, like being like I am only playing tank, but being like I prefer tanks and picking that 90% of the time. So I think you're right in that you have to have those heroes of every role because the situations will come up where you have to fill that role. But not trying to do everything, be like like definitely have a thing you're good at and let people know that's the thing you feel most comfortable on, while being flexible enough to fill if needed. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I meant. Like I'm with you. I play assassins like probably 80-90% of my games as well.
Right.
That's more for just like the last resort. You have to fill slot.
Right.
But everything else, you just play what you want to for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I'm glad we're on the same page. Because I kept filling and losing, man, and it's like I have a level 45 Greymane. I know how to play Greymane, but I think I'm just gonna tank from now on. Tank does tend to have kind of more influence over the game's flow, I think, just in that people follow the tank and stuff. So maybe it's that. But anyways, thank you for that answer. And game 4 against Team Expert on the old Towers of Doom. So you guys have now played 3 games against these guys. You went to a comfort map and pulled a win there on a map you've practiced a lot on Braxis. They play Braxis too, actually, but you guys are kind of known for that. So going into this on Towers of Doom, what are you thinking as far as like how are you feeling about what the game plan is here?
I mean, at this point, we knew that they were like an extremely strong team. You can kind of tell the strength of your opponents after playing them a few times. So we knew that we had to probably adapt a little bit because our game against Team Expert was the first time we played against the European team, and it was pretty clear that like our 2 metas were clashing a little bit in terms of pick priority and what to do. So yeah, going into it, the mindset was pretty much, our opponents are good, and there's a bit of a meta clash going on here. So we're just going to have to pick what we think is best and maybe even adapt a little bit pick what they think is best and make sure we can play it.
Show a lot of respect.
If only to deny them as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like very impressed by Aethero Angel's play this tournament. I always knew he was good, and I'd seen him play a couple times, but man, he like really excelled in this land. Like he played well for sure. So that was probably like for you too. Like, oh man, this guy's good. So I could see that being a concern of yours. So let me go over here to Towers of Doom. I didn't load the draft because I'm a scrub lord. There we go.
Yes, you are.
Oh, and the teams are reversed. We put Gale Force on the right. Expert on the left. These are all things I could have been doing, but I wasn't. All right, so Towers of Doom. It's first pick, first ban for Expert. They do ban the Illidan. Was it you or Michael on the Illidan the previous games?
It was Mike on Illidan the previous games. So they lost like the Braxis game 3 to kind of just like Illidan backdooring their core while the rest of us stalled their backs.
Yeah.
So maybe they were a little.
That was a fun game to watch.
PTSD or something for them. Yeah.
But see, that's what's curious to me. I guess maybe they just maybe they kind of just thought, yeah, this guy really, this guy knows how to play Illidan. We just don't want to deal with it. It's annoying because you're on Towers of Doom. He can't backdoor your core. Like so,
yeah.
So and they was probably just like, we don't want to deal with that. Michael Udall, the very first guest on Nexus Drafthouse ever. Just a little trivia tidbit there.
Well, plus the Illidan ban also makes you choose between which, right? I mean, we talked about Tastar and Ariel. It makes you choose kind of between things that they want.
That's true. That is very true.
and when they probably had no interest in the Illidan to begin with, right?
Yeah. These bands that close several avenues of drafting paths are always pretty nice, and especially when it's a comfort pick. So I could see him doing it. You guys do ban out the Ariel again, I assume for the reasons you listed before. Same, just kind of, you know, Ariel. Anything to add to that, or?
It's pretty much the exact same thing,
Okay.
just comforts for them, yeah.
So they take.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
well, I have a question on that ban. So you were forced, to choose Ariel or another hero, and if you don't ban out the Ariel, it's likely that they'll pick it up, but then you get the task star. So what's the calculus there that you had to go through to determine that no, the Ariel is still worth banning?
Basically, we weren't sure if they were actually gonna first pick Tassadar. Europe, like I said, they prioritize the Oriole very heavily, whereas in they prioritize the Tassadar very highly. So in their normal rotation, Tassadar would probably be like third pick for them, at least in previous HCC games in Europe. So they kind of adjusted to our playstyle as well and moved up their Tassadar priority to first pick, to deny us as well partly. And so that was part of the reason we weren't sure if they were actually gonna even first pick it. And then the second one was, this was before Genji got nerfed again, so
Right.
Genji was still a very
Okay.
very much a powerhouse, and especially in North America, people were running Genji Abathur a lot, and it was known as just an extremely strong combination, like kind of like Tassadar Tracer, just very potent. So if
Okay.
they did first pick the Tassadar, we could go into that as well,
So
which ended up happening.
That's exactly what happens. Yeah, they do pick up the Tassadar in the end, and you guys go with that Genji Abathur. Now, obviously, the synergy there between those heroes, especially on a map like Towers of Doom, where Abathur gets value, is pretty apparent. Were you happy with the way Genji Abathur felt in this game, would you still draft that?
Yeah, I think we were pretty happy with the Genji Abathur in this game. I think Genji Abathur against Tassadar Tracer, both are just extremely strong combinations of heroes, and I think a lot of it just comes down to kind of like a skill matchup. I'd say draft-wise, neither side would have a definite advantage over the other one if it was just like 2 against 2.
So given that, I mean, I assume you expected them to pick up Tracer in a later pick, so you just felt that the Genji Abathur was your best choice to counter it, to play that level of fire with fire. Is that?
Yeah, pretty much for the assassin slots at least.
And also Genji, especially in this state, in this patch, Genji wins against Tracer. 1v1, he can actually fight Tracer, which is always nice. And then you kind of have a lot of her strengths as well. So yeah, I get it for sure. Okay, so going over, they do pick up the Tracer, but they also pick up a Brightwing, which you don't. It's not a crazy pick, but you don't always see it that early in the draft. Why do you think they prioritized the Brightwing along with the Tracer here?
So I think Team Expert actually has an extremely good Brightwing player. Kirsten,
Okay.
he's probably one of the best Brightwing players I've ever played against, at least in recent memory. We did, I think we scrimmed Team Expert a little bit, and I noticed that already just from the scrims. And they actually do something that's pretty clever. So like when they face anything with Protect, particularly Genji and Varian, I guess are the only two with self-activated protects. So normally, as a Tracer, you can't bomb a Genji when his Protect is still up because he'll just Protect and your bomb won't do any damage. But yeah, they have this combination down where their communication is very clean, and as soon as Tracer bombs Genji or Varian, they will instantly polymorph the guy. So you're not able to. Well, essentially, you're not able to use your Protect, and then the bomb will get off regardless of whether you have the cooldown or not.
And that's a very tight timing too, because you might not want to, you want the polymorph to be more towards the end of the Tracer bomb's activation to ensure it goes off. That definitely requires some serious coordination. I didn't know that. I hadn't thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. Plus, with Brightwing's buffs, she's not like just a polymorph bot that globals around and soaks, and lets someone rotate. She actually provides spell armor now in a big way, and some decent healing and nice utility, and So yeah, Brightwing coming back, and I didn't know about that little interaction with Tracer, but now that knowing that, would you going back with your Tracer against a Medivh? Although it wouldn't work against Medivh because he does it. Yeah. Okay. So you couldn't do Akka's Brightwing with that. But
Yeah,
it's
unfortunately.
something nice to have in your pocket for the future, though. I'm sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I was thinking just that kind of skill interaction, like that's not something that any North American team has done, and that's
Right.
something that actually impressed me a lot because it is basic but it takes a lot of game knowledge to realize that that is something that you can do, and it takes a
Mhm.
lot of game knowledge and just execution to make sure that you actually do it in game every single time. So
Right. Right.
that's something that impressed me when we were scrimming them for sure.
Yeah. That's really cool.
So
Okay.
they gave that up in scrims then? I mean,
Yeah, so
that's
I
interesting.
knew that they were already gonna. That's what they were looking to do when they picked the 2-3 here. That's probably why they picked both early on.
Right.
Okay.
But it's not like you can draft around
Yeah, I was
that.
gonna say, what do you do now? I
Yeah.
mean, they've basically laid out their game plan. How do you react? Like,
Yeah,
just play your
so
game, or
yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, it's a good combo what they do, but Task Tracer against Genji Abder is still it's more or less a 50-50 matchup, just heavily skill dependent. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, pretty much the game plan is play our game and against their game,
Okay.
and whoever's playing better, that game will win for
Gotcha.
sure.
So you do ban ETC here. They've been showing that a little bit in previous games, and they banned the Uther, which needs a little explanation, I'm sure. So tell us about the ETC ban. Obviously, you weren't flying over to Kiev thinking about banning ETC, probably, but this tournament obviously had some surprises in it, in subtle ways like that. So what made you want to say, okay, yeah, let's ban the ETC?
Yeah, so Bad Bunny, their tank player on Expert, was actually the first one to use ETC in the tournament several times, actually, I think. So,
Mm-hmm.
looking over their drafts, we noticed that they do have a tendency to just pick this ETC randomly every now and then. And the closer it got to Western Clash, the more prevalent the pick was.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
kind of another deny pick where ETC is really good against Genji. If you
Right.
ever get near him, a slide W is really good. So kind of yeah, we had a feeling they wanted it, so we just denied it.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Like theorizing about it is like they've been playing him and stuns hurt Genji a lot. Same as Tracer. So yeah, more than even other heroes. Genji does not want to be stunned. So okay. Rolling over to your side of things, you do pick up that Dahaka again, and then I liked this variant pickup actually. They were kind of debating whether it was worth it or not. I like that when you see something, it shows some adaptability. And I assume this was Taunt Tracer, like that was the thing with Varian.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of the Tracer counter.
Yeah, and looking back on it, would you have drafted Varian again here, or was there a reason not to?
Yeah, I think we would have drafted Varian again. It's just overall very solid choice against Tracer. The taunt in the game got us a lot of kills that would have been very hard to obtain otherwise. So I
Mm-hmm.
think overall
Mhm.
it was pretty good.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And then of course Dahaka on a big 3-lane tall map. Just lots of value, able to be where he needs to be. Nice tankiness, 3 life bars. Good hero. Fast, super move speed. Yeah, I love that hero.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I mean it's all true though. Like he's just so solid all around. And I think I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it felt like Dahaka was just he was like 100% draft interactivity rate. Like he was either banned or picked every game. Like I don't know if there was anywhere he wasn't involved in the draft. So yeah,
Yeah,
there might have been a couple, but man, yeah,
it's probably pretty close to that. Yeah, might have been a couple odd ones, but that sounds close.
yeah,
I'm gonna check
Yeah,
it out for
has to be
you.
yeah.
close to
Check it
that
out
number.
for me, man.
He, yeah, he was played 93% of game or picked or
93.
banned 93%.
Yeah, that's
He was picked 74, banned 18, and he had a 56% win rate. So
so that tells you it's pretty solid choice there. Yeah, when you have a 93% rate in the
but
pick ban.
yeah, I think looks like the only one who had a higher interactivity. Oh, it was pretty close. Was Uther. So the
Oh,
two
okay,
of them
right. That makes sense too. They're both just really good.
and Danubrak.
Okay,
So
sure,
yeah,
I get it. All right. Well, okay. So going over to Team Expert side of things, this is where they need to pick up their warrior or warriors, and they do indeed do that with the. I believe this was a royal focus, Leoric, and the Stitches was still on the table. So does that raise any flags for you in your draft? For your obviously you need a healer, so does that influence your healer choice in any way, or what do you think of those picks?
Yeah, I think they just wanted, a side lane soaker, solo laner, and a tank. Stitch is pretty good tank there.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit surprised they didn't go a new Brack, just because the web wrap into the Genji is, I think, pretty good. You wait for the Dragon Blade and web wrap. But Stitch is also very good. You can do the same thing with Gorge if you want. I think they went Bile that game, but Bile is good disengage. We have pretty much 3 melees, maybe if you count Genji as a melee, like 3.5, 4 melees. So Bile very effective against that, and
Yeah.
just hook picks in general are just always something to keep in mind. Something that's always potentially game winning. So they
Mhm.
always have the hook into polymorph as well. So
Uh,
makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the Leoric goes, there's only so many side lane soakers that they can go into. We picked the Dahaka and they banned out the Illidan. So at that point, it was like, once again, he has the Leoric for soaking or the Malthael. And those were probably like the two most likely options for him.
Mhm.
Maybe the Sonya, but
Possibly, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
he was pretty limited on that.
Benji Logan asks in the chat, do you think picking Dahaka here leaves you low on damage versus a double support?
So picking the Haka does leave us a little bit low on damage, but I wasn't too worried about it just because Genji Outputher as a backline pair is a lot of damage
It's a lot.
output. It's probably one of the higher damage output duos in the game.
Right.
Not only is it Genji with a hat, but after 10 is essentially 2 Genjis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's generally a lot of damage output coming from 2 Genjis.
That's too many Genjis, man.
Do you think that either team here needed more damage? I mean, they're both pretty reliant on one hero, and
No, that was a trend of this tournament for sure.
I know that's where it's at, but would one of the teams or both have benefited from more damage, or do you think that the drafts happened the way they did? I mean, because of the meta, and that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think it's probably because of the meta, and that's kind of just where the meta was at right at that point in time. It's like we didn't have a Medivh, so they had solo damage tracer, but all the tracer needs to do is really kill one person, and then the rest will naturally snowball from there. And same with us, like once we
Right.
kill one person, the fight should start snowballing from there. So all both sides really needed was the damage output necessary to kill the first person,
Right.
and
Okay.
for everyone else to kind of survive until the fight snowballs.
Yeah, the right wing or this tracer goes down. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is it's kind of you need one kill with these kind of comps, and then you got a big advantage. I was gonna ask actually, looking at this last spot, obviously you're gonna pick up your support, and you don't want to gamble with the series on the line like this. If you had a good Medivh player, could you have done to them what they did to you and risked the kind of the Abathur baby support and then the Medivh support and stop that pulse bomb? Is that something you think could possibly work here?
So I think we could have run Medivh maybe instead of Abathur or something like that.
Right.
I think we still would have needed
still
like
need a
a real support hero
Okay.
that can replenish life bars. But yeah, potentially we could have run the Medivh instead of something else if we were as comfortable as they were on it.
Right. So because that's true. You see the Tassadar on the other side, and you're like, well, they picked Medivh here. Let's do that to them. Because
Right.
then they have to risk running Tracer. So yeah, I could see that. But obviously, Abathur has a lot of pluses here too. So yeah, you do go with the Karazim support, and that was going to be my next question. What made you lean towards the Karazim here?
Especially versus like a radar.
Yeah, so I mean, for support pick, I always consult with Akka to see what he wants to play as well. So part of it is he was leaning towards the Monk. I mean, the argument made to me was that Monk can pressure Tracer, just kind of like his QE combo can just go onto Tracer wherever she is and apply a little bit of pressure, and after 16 you can get the 100 fist thing, and then you can just spam Qs on Tracer or any backline carry and put a lot of pressure on them. And then Palm also is pretty good against the combo that they like doing, which is the post bomb polymorph combo. I was just telling Akka, the second you see pulse bomb, just palm because they're gonna get the polymorph off. So
Right.
one of the more reliable ways of getting that off as well. If I
Especially
had,
considering they only need the one kill, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So denying the first kill is pretty
Mhm.
critical there.
Right.
Um, I think yeah, Rhaegar would have also been a good choice. Rhaegar is the difference between Monk and Rhaegar is a target where Monk is generally not, because Monk is just with 3 Qs almost impossible to catch or kill if he's actively trying to avoid it. Whereas Rhaegar, can't ancestral himself. If he ever gets caught, he's just dead. So Rhaegar presents them with another target, whereas
Sure.
Monk presents them with one less.
That's true.
Um, although
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure if I still would have picked the Monk if I was given like another chance to draft this.
Mhm.
The way it worked out wasn't quite like the way we planned. I mean, just in North America in general, just monks I think are not as practiced as monks in Europe. So,
Right.
like palms, I feel like are a bit more risky for us. It's a bit more coin flippy on whether or not it actually lands.
Sure.
Um,
Can't totally rely on it. Yeah.
Right.
yeah, and also they responded very well to the monk pressure, where it was like every time monk went in to try and pressure the tracer, all of them would immediately collapse, and then the monk would end up taking more damage than tracer, and taking a bad trade that way. So I think the theory behind it was good, but the execution, in terms of execution, they actually were pretty ready for what we wanted our monk to do. So. But that
Did
was the idea behind it.
did you consider a Stutrov after seeing what it had done to you in the output earlier, or is that a not a hero Octaface is comfortable with?
It's actually, I mean, I think Akka is pretty comfortable with like any support. So,
Hmm.
we did consider Stukov briefly. The problem with the Stukov is, uh, well, one, it's kind of also the Rhaegar problem where he is also a target. He's not super slippery like Monk. So
Right.
if Tracer gets on top of the Stukov, he will probably just die. And the second one is Stukov and dive heroes generally don't have the best synergy because
Mm.
uh, you want your pathogen to kind of spread across your whole
Right.
team.
Sure.
So with dive heroes like Genji or Illidan, if you put it on yourself, uh, chances are, if the fight's already started, they're across the screen, diving the other team, and you're far back, and it's kind of hard to get the pathogen to them. And if you put it on them, well, they can have the initial starting pathogen, but after the fight starts, you're just
Right.
naturally kind of gonna be separated by the nature of the heroes.
Yeah.
So Palm and the mobility that Terzine brought was just superior there. All right.
Yeah,
So he's a
exactly.
target to kill, but one that's a little harder to kill.
Right.
The other thing is it's really scary to cast E with Stukov when there's a Stitches on the other side. It's
Oh
like,
yeah,
No, that's fair.
absolutely.
yeah,
That's fair. Yeah.
yeah. That would be my concern for sure. Shock Me Sane asks real quick in the chat here, how much of the drafting decision making is based on strong counter comps versus comfortability? And most of our guests on here, we ask this question a lot. Feel like it's good to be flexible, but you want to go in and get your draft as whenever possible. But you can go ahead and add on that or change that up if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, for the way I draft personally, I do try and like ignore as much comfortability as I can and
Mm-hmm.
draft just what I think will be the best possible heroes against the enemy composition,
Mm-hmm.
or the best possible heroes to make just our composition as strong as possible.
Right.
But hero comfortability, I think, just does come into factor a lot. Um, Pretty much everywhere. It's just like different players have different hero preferences where
Mm-hmm.
they just like a hero better, or if you ask them to, if there's like a meta hero, but they think a different hero is more suited to the role, or they're just way more comfortable on a different hero. Like sometimes you just go with that different hero to give the player the comfortability.
Right.
And I think like pretty much every team that I've met has
Mm-hmm.
some degree of that. Just human nature. People are different.
Ideal perfect
People prefer
world,
different.
you just draft what the perfect pick is, but that's not always how the right choice.
Yeah, exactly.
I got you.
Hmm.
Okay. So hope that answered your question. So do you think you ended up dropping this game due to the execution on the others, or was it? Would you have preferred maybe a different healer? What do you think happened?
Um, I think this game as well was more or less execution based. Both the games I chose, 1 and 4, were they were like very very close games. Both games went to
Yes.
like level 20 to level 20 plus onwards.
Mhm.
And yeah, at the end of the day, I think this game they just once again they slightly out executed us in team fights. They slightly out team fought us, and
Mhm.
yeah, our game plan was overall solid, I think, but it was just once again comes down to executing. And I think the Tomb game they out rotated us slightly. In this game, their mechanics and just the way they out team fought us slightly, and that's kind of what decided it at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So overall in the Western Clash, how did you feel about your drafting in general versus the European teams?
Overall, I think the drafting was solid. Not I wouldn't say it was amazing or anything like that. It's always very difficult to draft when you're coming into an event like this where there's two separate metas between Europe and North America, and you have to
Right.
figure out which one is better and how to combine them optimally. Um, there were a few drafts I was unsatisfied with where it was kind of like we had. Uh, like maybe 1 or 2 drafts where we got pretty heavily outdrafted.
Mhm.
And but the vast majority of the drafts, I felt like we were very comfortable with them, and it just comes down to execution at the end of the day, which is what we want. Like we want our drafts to, even either be 50-50 or slightly favored, and just out execute the enemy team when based on our abilities. So I'd say overall, I was fairly satisfied with them.
Yeah, and drafting throughout an entire 3-day tournament and never getting out drafted once. I mean, drafting is a really really hard thing to do at the pro level and never get out drafted. Like even Fnatic, I feel got out drafted a couple times. They still won those games, but
Yeah.
they did get out drafted a couple times.
Yeah,
So it's near impossible to have perfect drafts and never get out drafted. But yeah, it's incredibly important. What was I going to say? So looking at the meta at this tournament, obviously this double tank, double support carry kind of comp was very popular. Maybe with a little bit of modified support with the Abathur, but like a single damage dealer kind of things. Is that how the meta is still looking to you right now today, or do you think it's shifting a little bit?
I think it's still pretty similar to that. The only difference between Western Clash and now is the addition of Garrosh, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Just a tank.
yeah, other than that, not much has changed. So I think the meta will still be pretty similar.
By the way, that hero is good.
Oh yeah, I mean
It was-
Garrosh will definitely be making appearances. I think
yeah.
in pro play here, league everywhere. But
I,
you know,
I've been spamming that boy.
he'll just slot into the
Yeah.
tank slot,
He's the
but
new
then the
king.
compositions will still be similar. I think.
Right,
Yeah.
right. God, he's so fun too, man. Anyways, yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing pro level Garrosh for sure, because he's awesome. Okay, so the meta is still kind of looking about like it did a couple weeks ago. That's not too surprising. It hasn't been that long since Western Clash, obviously. So yeah, they're very fun games to watch, and these were a couple good drafts. I enjoyed.
Yeah,
them.
thanks for picking these. These were fun ones to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
So what do you have going on in the near future? How's Gale Force looking? What do you guys you still scrimming a lot, or I don't know, just your stream? Anything coming up?
Yeah, I mean, as for Gale Force, we're still screaming every day. We're gonna have our first match, I think, on like the 25th, which is about a week from now, and that's when HGC starts back up again. So we're gonna be playing against Even and Death, I think, first week. So
Okay.
Mhm.
that's what's up for us. And yeah, personally for me, yeah, same thing. I stream every single day.
Mhm.
So I'll probably still be streaming like pretty much every single day at the normal vampire times.
And
We appreciate that.
yeah. Obviously, anybody here who doesn't watch fan stream, if you're ever up later at night, please go to SC2 Fan TV on Twitch. It is SC2, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And check him out. He's the games are a joy to watch when he's it's I'm so happy he's there because I'm a night owl myself. Yeah. One more question. How do you feel going into this next phase of HGC? Do you like the direction you're headed? Do you feel confident that you'll be able to be the number 1 seed again?
Um, I am feeling pretty confident. I think GFE, like our team as a team, we're playing about as good as we have ever been, and we're still
Good.
improving. So I think we are on the right track. I'm definitely looking for, I'm definitely looking to keep the number one seed, and we're looking to keep the number one seed until BlizzCon. But it won't be easy. I think there's four really good teams right now in North
Mhm.
America. Freedom, Tempo Storm, Roll20. They're all extremely talented players and teams, and yeah, we're not gonna underestimate any of them. So I
Right.
think
That,
it'll be quite the challenge, but that's definitely what we're looking to do.
and that's the hard thing, right? Is you have to work hard to stay on top of the heap in your region. But I'm sure you're like, I really want to beat European teams, and like that's another thing that you have to excel towards. So it's a lot, It's tough to be the best for sure. But
Yeah, where do you see North America going here in order to gain a little more parity between the other regions?
I think at BlizzCon will be the first tournament where North America beats like a European team. I think
I think so too.
Here
this
for here
Western Clash
first.
was pretty close. Yeah, I mean, uh, Freedom got to 2 games and almost beat Team Liquid. They were extremely close. We should have gotten 2 games against Team Liquid. Like Western Clash was the first event where every other event,
That one was
North
so
America has only
close.
taken
Yeah.
one map against Europe. The entire event, like last Western Clash Midseason Brawl, uh, we only took one map off of them. This event, we took like 4 maps off.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I think any more maps, and we're gonna have to take a series somewhere. So I think BlizzCon will be the spot where we do it.
I was rooting so hard in that Team Liquid series. Oh man, I wanted America to pull a win in that series. It was so close.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, there's the Twitch for fan there in the chat. If you are already watching him, I definitely think you should. Yeah, I think we got it all covered. That was a nice hour long draft segment, and I think we learned a lot. Everybody here is definitely rooting for you guys in the near future.
We are.
Yeah, and we want you guys to excel and do great. And yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about draft is fun. Don't no matter what they say, Ryan. Yeah.
Hey, I like it too.
I know you
This is
do.
fun.
You're sitting right
This
there.
is
Of
good.
course you do. Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
Well, thanks a lot, fan, for coming on. We really appreciate it, and good luck. We'll be watching,
Yep.
and keep your eye out for some great drafts. For maybe we can have you down on again sometime. That'd be fun.
Yep. For sure.
Sounds good. Thanks.
So a couple more plugs before we shut it off. This VOD will be on our YouTube channel within 24 hours. So that's youtube.com/c/Storm Legacy. You can find it. You can just search for Nexus Drafthouse too, and it'll come up there. We stream every day here. Me hating everything in Hero League during the day, and every day I'm here. And we also have our Nexus by the Numbers series, which is math, basically a numbers breakdown of the talents of heroes that come out and heroes from the past. They're very interesting videos by our friend Skizzers, who gets super involved in the numbers game on the all the talents and stuff. So check those out. We release those every 1 or 2 weeks, yeah, I think that's about it. So thanks again for coming by Nexus Drafthouse. Thank you again to our guest fan, and we will see you guys probably tomorrow. All right, bye.
Thank you. Good night.